show. Thank you for joining. This week it's episode 2, and I hope that you voted on Tuesday. So today's show, I'm going to deliver exactly what I promised at the end of last week's show. I'm going to talk about how these unconscious programs are running in the background, pretty much dictating how we think, how we feel about things, what we do, how we act upon things. So I'm going to share with you my limiting belief that haunted me for literally 28 years, how I discovered it and what I did about it in order to have a new mindset, an empowering mindset, because these limiting beliefs were pretty much dictating how I saw the world, what I thought, what I felt, and how I acted then. So let's start with the hero's journey and how the hero's journey has anything to do with it. I was at an artist retreat, and our assignment at this big, long retreat was to come up with our stories as artists within the framework of the hero's journey. So the hero's journey is kind of this big circle. You have like this big journey that kind of goes like this, and it starts out with the person, me, in the ordinary world. Here's me with my, my guitar, right? There's me with my guitar, right? All right, so isn't that cute? So it starts out with the person, the protagonist in the ordinary world. And by the way, the hero's journey is a framework that's used by really very successful movies like Star Wars and Harry Potter. It's a very, very popular framework that's used. And so that's why the mentors of this program suggested that we figure out what our stories are within the framework of the hero's journey. And so it kind of starts out where you get this call to adventure, and at first you don't want to go, but then you get this sort of urge to enter into this adventure, and you're kind of in this, this is the ordinary world, and this then is the hero's journey world, where you actually go into the unknown world. Okay, hero's journey. This is the unknown world down here. Okay, so you enter into the unknown world, and then you start having trials and tribulations, and which is fine. And then you're in this like awful place, this place called the abyss. ABYSS. You're in the abyss for a period of time where you learn all the things that you have to learn. And then there's atonement. You're on your way out. You have your atonement. And then you come back like a new person back into the ordinary world. So I was thinking about this hero's journey, and I was realizing that I was in this abyss and doing this thing for like 28 years. I was like, what is going on? Why am I stuck in this abyss? I can't seem to get out of this abyss. I've been here for 28 years. And this was at the end of the 28 years when I discovered this. That's when my 28 years ended, because I realized that what was keeping me here this whole time was a limiting belief that I adopted when I was 7 years old. So when I was 7 years old, I remember it distinctively. I was in my living room and I wanted to be a movie star. And so I told my dad, "Hey Dad, I want to be a movie star." And his response to me was, "Oh boy, that's a tough business." And little did I know, those 6 little words would shut me down when it came to anything that had to do with the entertainment industry. Acting, singing, music, theater, anything. I kind of adopted that belief that I better think of doing something else besides being an actor or anything in the entertainment business, because it's a really tough business and you could do all this work and have, some levels of success, which I did. But ultimately, it's not going to get you where you want to be because it's such a tough business. And so I realized that I had this thing happen to me when my dad said this to me when I was on this retreat, thinking about the hero's journey. And I was like, oh, I'm still stuck in the abyss because I still have this massively debilitating belief about myself and about what I'm capable of. I am so grateful that I finally discovered that it was even there through this artist retreat and by like really thinking about this stuff and really digging deep. And sometimes that's what we have to do when we're feeling stuck. We have to dig pretty deep. Oftentimes, the limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves and about our abilities go way back to when we're little kids. And we carry these beliefs with us into the rest of our childhood, into our teenage years, into our young adulthood, and into our adulthood, even when we're in our 30s, 40s, 50s. And it wasn't until I was in my early 50s when I discovered this limiting belief. So let me get situated here and I'm going to tell you how the rest of the story goes. And so it might be interesting for you to kind of think back to when you were a little kid, if your mom or your dad or somebody of influence, a teacher, an older sibling, an older family member, someone else of influence, maybe somebody from the church, said something to you that perhaps might have stuck with you all these years and served as a limiting belief to put you in a situation where you're feeling stuck for maybe years and years and years. Of course, I didn't realize this was happening, that I was the person responsible to adopting this limiting belief and hanging on to this limiting belief and allowing this limiting belief to dictate how I saw the world, how I interpreted the world, what I thought and what I did and what I felt. And it was my responsibility to look at that limiting belief and say, hey, this is not true, and adopt other beliefs that are going to empower me. And so that's what I did at that point in my life. And ever since then, I have been working on making sure that everything that I am thinking about, everything that I'm doing is, yes, you can do this. It's not a tough business. It's not too tough for you. You can do this. You just have to figure it out. Everything is figure-outable. That's a book actually from a girl named Marie Forleo that I would recommend. Everything is figure-outable. Another thing that can hold us back is the fact that we don't think that we're going to be able to figure something out. So not being able to figure something out is something that you have to just be okay with, because chances are when you're ready to start your project, you're not going to have the whole thing figured out. Some things you do have to have figured out. You have to have things figured out to a certain extent in order to get started on the right foot. But too many of us are paralyzed by the idea that we have to have everything worked out. We have to have every step from A to Z figured out and worked out so that we know it's all going to work perfectly. That's not how the world works. That's not how successful businesses work. Successful businesses have to pivot when there's a big change in the market. Successful people have to pivot when there's a big change in their journey as well. And so just getting started is really number one. It's really the number one thing that you need to do. Getting started, analyzing how things are going as you're moving forward so that you can tweak what you're doing here and there when what you're doing needs to be tweaked, and keep on moving forward in such a way that you know that you're getting results from what you're doing. My problem is that although I was getting results, I was experiencing little successes here and there. Some successes were bigger than others. But it was always seen through these like fog-colored glasses where I thought, oh yeah, I guess this is really cool, but it's probably really not going to result in anything. And so that's what I was putting out into the universe. So when you have goals that you want to achieve, first you have to put out into the universe, yes, I can achieve this. Yes, I can figure this out. Yes, I know this is something that I can do. You have to believe in yourself first. Now, there's more to the story. I'm going to tell you how this limiting belief can have such a stranglehold on your unconscious mind, dictating how you see the world, dictating what you see, what you feel, what you think, and what you do. So what happens is when you adopt a limiting belief like the one that I had, your unconscious mind is kind of functioning within that framework with those fog-colored glasses on. So let me explain to you how the brain works. Every second, the human brain is bombarded with about 11 million bits of information, believe it or not. 11 million bits. And during that 1 second amount of time, the brain can only consciously process 40 to 50 bits. So guess what happens to those other 10,999,950 bits of information? All of those bits of information get generalized, distorted, or completely deleted so that we can deal with this information. 11 million bits of information, our brains would like explode, right? So we have these programs running that are supposed to help us interpret the world. They're giving us little shortcuts so we can understand what things mean when we see them, when we hear them, when we're sensing them, when we're talking to somebody and taking in what they're saying to us. All of these things are generalized, distorted, and deleted according to the programs that are running in the background. So if I have this program running in the background that says, the music business is a tough business, any positive information I would get, any airplay charts my music would end up on, none of it was ever enough because of the way I interpreted that information. It was always, oh, well, that's really cool, but is it really ever going to result in anything? After all, the music business is such a tough business. So in order for you to discover if you have any limiting beliefs that have been holding you back, you are going to have to possibly dig very deep. It's so interesting how with some of my students, when I've shared my story with them, they'll share their own story about how they had a conversation with their mom or their dad about playing music or about singing. And they would get some negative comment from a mom or a dad. And so for one of my students, the answer from his dad was, well, why are you doing that? You don't have any talent. And so then that's how he interpreted the world. He thought, well, okay, I guess I don't have any talent. I'm just going to try and squeak by with what I enjoy doing and hope that I can have some fun with it in the meantime, but I don't have any talent, so I'm not going to have any great expectations about what I'm capable of. And so here we are. I've shared a little bit about my journey and about my debilitating belief that held me back for 28 years, literally 28 years. So homework for you is to kind of dig deep. Now remember, I did not discover this limiting belief until I was on an artist retreat, and I had to dig really deep and think about my story as an artist within the framework of the hero's journey. So I was really just kind of really thinking and meditating and just spending some time with this whole idea about, why am I stuck in this abyss right now? I was still stuck in the abyss until the day I realized that I had this limiting belief that had been holding me back for years and years. And so a little homework for you. I want you to just kind of dig deep. You know, you might have to meditate on this a little bit. Just kind of let your thoughts kind of wander all over the place about people that have influenced you and possibly might have said something negative to you that ended up just kind of functioning as a limiting belief that could be holding you back even today. So you might want to go back to when you were a little kid. A lot of these limiting beliefs go way back to when we were small, little kids, 7 years or younger often. And these limiting beliefs kind of take root and they stay there until we tackle them and we realize that they're there. And then we can rip them apart and start replacing the limiting beliefs with more empowering beliefs. And so that's what we're going to talk about next week, how you can replace any limiting beliefs that you have with empowering beliefs. You can't just all of a sudden erase them all, right? It's a little bit more difficult than that because a lot of these limiting beliefs are very ingrained. They have been there for years and years and years. And so how do we get rid of them? This is what we're going to talk about next week. If you enjoyed my content today, please click on like and subscribe and share with your friends who you think might enjoy this content. And until next time, you guys have a really great rest of your day.
Working hard and it's getting me nowhere in my running shoes. Had blue.